Welcome to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on social media at Galen Trombley. I hope you enjoy the show.
Greetings.
Please hold for a very important message.
Light speed sequence initiated.
How may I help you?
Bonjour.
Security breach.
The truth shall set you free. Awesome. It's a miracle.
Stabilizing. 3, 2, 1. Mission complete.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 236. I'm getting that right. I think the last three have been a episode behind, but 236. We have. I'm going to try to get this correct because my wife says all the time. She introduced herself, but Giovanina.
Yes.
Bucci.
Yes.
And from now on, we're just going to call you G. So,
okay.
But you came highly recommended from multiple people, my wife included, and some other musical people, and I hear your name all the time. I know I've seen you play before. We're going to have her, maybe her co-host guitar, play with us a little bit later. But people that do not know you, who are you? What do you do? Obviously, you seem like a lot of fun, so this is going to be a fun podcast.
I'm excited.
Yes, this will be good. And you came over from the great state of Vermont to join us. I did.
So. Yeah, it was a fun and fitness day at school, so I had to change out of my tie-dye to get podcast ready for all of you who can't see us. So.
I'll get a picture later. The tie-dye actually would have been pretty good, but that's okay.
So I am, I have a few roles at present. I'm a part-time school psychologist, but I am finishing that gig, and the kids' last day is tomorrow. All the people in education, I can feel me on the excitement that is burning deep in my soul right now for everyone to have summer break. But I've been at this school for 7 years, and I'm, it's bittersweet. It's been an amazing community of people to work for and with. So I'm done that in the next week and shifting full-time into being a gallery owner, which I opened in November of 2020. It's called Marigold. It's in Burlington. And I have a lot of hopes and dreams for this space. Apparently I need the time to foster those things. And then I play music, and that's me.
So, and you're okay. So we're gonna pull back the layers here and start, and we're gonna dive back into that. So you're originally from the area?
I am. I was born and raised in Plattsburgh, and went through Bailey Avenue, Oak Street, Plattsburgh Middle School, the high school, and then I ventured off to Ithaca College.
Okay.
I finished that, and then I moved to Ireland for a few months. Because I didn't know what I wanted to do. And then my pack of friends started an email chain while I was in Ireland that was like, hey, we're moving to St. Thomas. If anybody wants to go and work a season, come on board. And then 9 of us went.
The island of St. Thomas, right?
The island of St. Thomas, yeah. So 9 of us went. I'm still alive, which I'm so grateful for looking back because there's many poor decisions that happened in that span of time, a lot of memorable ones as well. But so the original plan was we'll go for 6 months, work this season, blah, blah, blah. But I ended up staying for 2.5 years, met a boyfriend at the time. We then moved to Flagstaff, Arizona, and I was there until 2011, and then I came back to Plattsburgh. I did a year of AmeriCorps with BHSN. Okay. I'm really giving you the resume
This
here.
is great. Yeah.
This is the quick and dirty. Okay. I did a year with AmeriCorps, and I was at BHSN for that year, and then I started the school psych grad program in 2012 at SUNY Plattsburgh.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I was there, graduated from there in 2015, and then I moved to Durango, Colorado for a year, which was lovely and magical. I just knew it was a little too far to root because I'm super close to my family and et cetera. Well, I'm sure they'll come up at some point. And so I left Durango and I moved to Vermont in 2016. So I've been there ever since.
So okay, so you're now kind of settled for a few years, but so the going around and traveling, was it easy for you to pack up and just change?
Yeah.
Did you love that part?
I'm a fire sign. I'm a Sagittarius, so I love me some change. Yeah.
So that's
It
good. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So, and this is like one of the threads of the gallery as well, which I'll get into. But I've always had sort of this like wandering spirit. I love diving into new places and being in new places and sort of like fully immersing myself in, like another community. And it doesn't have to be like a big place. I just love, even if I go and, like travel, I love sort of like spending a week in a small town and like going to different restaurants and in that little place and like going on adventures in that little place and really getting the full experience and having conversations with, like people to, get recommendations for the next cool spot to check out. I love it.
So where'd you go in Ireland?
I lived in Londonderry,
Okay.
and I was broke as all heck. I don't know what the swearing rules
And
are.
you can say whatever you want.
Okay.
Were you young at the time?
I was 20.
Okay.
I had, no, I was, let me think about this. I was 20 when I graduated college.
That's early.
I graduated a year earlier and then a year early. And then I'm also just like, I was like 17 when I went to college. I was just like, as soon as I was able to go into kindergarten, my parents were like, get out of here. You have a lot of energy. So I was in Londonderry and I was 21 at that time. And I was there for like 3 months, stayed with like friends of friends. And I ended up doing I worked for like a volunteer after school program for teenagers that were doing like journalism kind of stuff.
I've been able to go over there a couple times, and it's one of my favorite places on earth.
Yeah,
we were down in Londonderry is a little bit more north, though, right?
Yeah, it's quite north. Yes, it's way up there.
Did you ever go to County Kerry?
No.
So that's like Kerry, Cork is like the south. So like the southwest was where my
Yes.
family was from. So we went down there and have cousins and stuff down
Oh,
there.
amazing.
Yeah, and Ireland's great. I'm spend years, but I want to go back.
Yeah.
So like anybody that goes to Ireland, like, oh, where'd you go?
Yeah,
Like,
and it was amazing. So I was I lived with this family, and I was, on foot, and as I mentioned, very broke. So I like got this whole, experience by doing whatever I could to like enjoy what I was in. So one fun story I have from Ireland is I went out on Valentine's Day by myself to this like bar, that we like always went to, and I met this couple, and they were like, we got chit-chatting, and they were like, oh my gosh, we love meeting new people and taking them on adventures. And I was like, oh, this sounds amazing. Yes, because I'm 21, and I'm like, this is a really safe and good idea. I totally do not have like a cell phone. I have nothing, right? So it's like, we're going to pick you up at the fire station tomorrow at 10. And I was like, okay, I will be there. And I have to say, it was indeed a magical day. They took me to Mallin's Head, which is the most northern point in Ireland. And they were both like from the area. And we went to like the wife's like mom's house, and they made tea and biscuits and the like old fashioned like wood burning stove that they cooked on in the
like
back.
bread and stuff?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then like a brother was a woodworker, and I got to see all that. And they were just this genuinely like amazing and lovely couple that this story could have gone like one of two ways. And I'm so grateful it went the way that it did. And it ended up being like this really memorable experience.
Is Londonderry Ireland or Northern Ireland?
Northern Ireland.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we just kind of like up here.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So I was going to say, because I mean, I've never been this far north. The most north I was kind of like in this range.
Yes.
So like, yeah.
So I flew into
way down
Dublin, and then I got on a train, I think.
Okay.
A train or a bus. Almost missed my stop, and rolled in with a completely oversized LL Bean bag that did not roll or anything. It just was like schlepped over my shoulder. It had my name, inscripted on it. High school graduation gift. And I was like, I'm here. And
ready to tackle.
Yeah. With like no plan, no agenda.
So
yeah.
So have you always been like seat of your pants, just kind of like, just do it? Or are you like are you a big planner? Are you like...
I would definitely not consider myself a big planner.
Okay.
However, with time and age, I have learned the, some of the like advantages of thinking ahead. And now that life is just like kind of busy and in a lot of different directions and like booking gigs and all this stuff and having to think ahead, I am like 100% more planful than I ever was before the age of 30.
So you go, okay, so St. Thomas. So what was the draw there? That was just on a whim too? Like
Yeah, so so this couple that we were all like friends with, the guy had gone down previously and worked like seasons, and he was like, I'm going back. Anybody want to go? And one by one, it was like, well, are you going? I'll go if you're going. And so like, it was just this trickle effect. And we lived in 2 apartments above and below each other. And in my apartment was 2 bedrooms and 5 girls and 5 twin mattresses that like lined the bedroom.
it was like a big sleepover. Like
it was like
a junior high
real
sleepover.
world 2005. Yeah, like just it was a real experience. Yeah, and like the only thing we ever had in our refrigerator was nothing, and then we had like freeze pops. You know what I mean? And just like everybody had just graduated college. I happened to have been like a year out at this point, but I was no wiser or anything like that. Like I just was like, yeah, let's do it. So we did. And I had like, everybody worked like a million jobs and everybody like worked their rear ends off to,
So what were you doing? Like what was the
So I was a barista like the whole time I was down there. And then
Okay.
I like co-managed a retail store for a year. And then that's really where I started playing music out.
Okay.
And so, yeah, for one of my birthdays, like the group of people I was with all pitched in and got me an amp and some
Nice.
things that I could use to like start playing out, which was amazing. And that sort of like launched just gigging.
So St. Thomas, was this more of like the was it like in part like was it touristy or not touristy? I guess I'm saying like was it something where you were just like revolving door people, or were you with the locals a lot?
So it was kind of like eventually we started to like meet and hang with locals, and like several people met like partners or boyfriends or girlfriends or whatever down there like during the time. But St. Thomas is just such like a wave of tourism. It's like a million cruise ships from like November to March, and then it kind of chills out tenfold for the like rest of the time because it's 150 degrees
All the time.
but it's awesome because it's empty. You know what I mean? It's like totally a double-edged sword because you're like, this is great, there's like no tourists, we can go do what we want when we want kind of thing. And then a lot of the jobs all of us had were like pretty tourist dependent, so
So when did you start playing music? Like were you like you started gigging, let's say you start gigging in St. Thomas, you were like in your 20s, were you playing music as a child or?
I was playing, I was haphazardly blowing through an alto saxophone for 9
Nice.
years. Yeah. And then, but I had like, I grew up in like a super, music was always like on and, my parents didn't play, but they were just, they always went to shows, we went to concerts growing up. Like it was just kind of like a big thread that, wove through like life up until that point. So played the alto saxophone, bless my parents for coming to so many band concerts, like so many. Okay. Yeah. So and then for my high school graduation, I got my uncle's guitar as a gift. And that's like really when I started so I brought that with me to college. Okay. And then I played painfully at some open mics for several years. And then I started writing kind of right away. And then, just sort of played here and there at like open mics. I didn't have like a ton of my own shows or anything like that in college. And then, ventured to St. Thomas and was like, all right, just gonna give it a whirl.
So you're like 17, right? You said you graduate at 17?
Yep.
So you get a guitar at 17. Have you ever played a guitar at that point?
Not seriously. No, I've learned like 3 or 4 chords or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then did you play a lot in college? Was that like where you got the
I
bug?
practiced a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was completely infuriating for so long because it's a hard instrument to learn.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of muscle memory things that need to happen for a chord change to not sound like murderous to your ears, or take like a full 10 seconds. You know what I mean? It's like, bring.
Well, it's like the calluses on your fingertips.
Yeah.
It's like the cramping of your hand.
It's all those things. Yeah.
So what, I guess, like, how did you learn to play guitar? Was it YouTube? Was it sheet music? Was it books? Was it
Yeah, I looked
with
up
somebody? Did you have a teacher?
I did not have a teacher. I was pretty well self-taught, and I looked up, tabs and to try and figure
Ultimate
out
guitar?
some things. Yeah, you know it.
Yep.
And yeah, because YouTube wasn't a big thing. I
Yeah.
mean, this is like 2000. I was in college in 2001 to 2004.
That's what I was wondering. So there's now it's like
the-
you can YouTube any song, and there'd be like
Oh.
a bunch of covers. People will tell you how to play it.
100%. Yeah. So I just kind of tried to figure it out. I mean, I continued listening to a bunch of music, and obviously there was styles that I really enjoyed. And, yeah, and I've never played with a pick. I've always finger picked and tried. I think over time I've just naturally sort of developed my own.
You strum with just fingers?
I strum with just fingers.
Yep.
Yeah, a pick is so messy sounding for me. So
So when you get a guitar and you start practicing, was there a stage that you remember like I really like this instrument and want to commit to playing this a lot, or slash I feel like I'm getting it, I feel like I've turned a corner and now I'm it's kind of being a little bit more ingrained in second nature and I don't have to think as much.
I still think a lot when I play.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's always just so far to go. You have infinity to go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's if you are committed to wanting to get for your instrument and you to become this harmonious, relationship full of reciprocity, right? It's a major labor of love. I'm just not somebody that I memorized all the theory and I memorized all the I know every note on that. I definitely don't. You would not know by talking to me that I have been playing this instrument for as long as I have. And that's not the most that's not my proudest thing that I'm sharing with however many of you are listening to this. I'm working on it, but it's just there have been moments that have felt I felt really great about my playing, but any creative person that you probably talk to in here, it's there's for those moments there's 9 million where you're oh gosh, that could have gone better.
Can you read music?
I can read, yes. So I can read music that, for alto saxophone, right? I'm way out of practice, 20 years out of practice. So it would take me a while to, get, or 15 to 17 years out of practice.
But guitar though, it's just more
guitar. I mean, I will look up, tabs occasionally or look up chord charts and stuff like that. But, songwriting is really where my passion is in terms of guitar playing. So I finally took a lesson. I finally took my first batch of lessons during the pandemic. And that was life-changing. And I was why did I not do this earlier?
Guitar lessons or songwriting lessons?
Guitar lessons.
Okay.
Yeah.
With an instructor, one-on-one or online or?
With an instructor and a player that I know over in Burlington, Bob Wagner, who played on my last album.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, it was it opened a million gates, and it is equally overwhelming and amazing because you learn a new trick, or you learn a little bit more about the neck, or where to go next, or just there's just so much out there that I'm I still feel so green.
Well, when you look at a guitar, and I played very briefly in college, enough that I understand what you're referencing, but not at a very advanced level at all. So, but I remember thinking or looking at all the scales and just how many different parts are on the neck of the guitar that you play different notes. And the thing that I don't understand, because I don't understand music theory, is the root notes and how things change as you go up and down the neck. And when you see these really proficient players and they're just their fingers are just going all over the place, but the music is just beautiful.
Yes, that's not me.
Okay, but it's but it's wild.
I am thinking very hard about where to go next.
But how much like everything just kind of intertwines and like
Totally.
it's like a language on this guitar, like the neck. And
Yes.
like when Taylor was in here, she said the same thing. She goes, I can't read music. She goes, I have a pretty good ear. I know my chords.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I can kind of, and then she even did some like demonstrations. I'm sure this stuff you do too, but she could like manipulate the way she strums and way she picks and way she kind of
Totally.
mutes stuff, that it kind of adds a little flavor to like a C chord. And
Yeah.
you can kind of make it pop a little bit more.
Totally. Yeah. And so this is, like I didn't, scales, for example, like knew 0 scales until, I'm not kidding, like 3 years ago. And now I'm like, okay, well, I know this one, but there's like 9 million other ones to learn. So, it is just I will forever be learning, which is amazing. I think that's the thing that also kind of keeps me going back, because it is, for someone that like loves, transition and change and sort of movement and all this stuff. It's like I have the luxury of this thing near me that I like really passionately love, and it always gives back in some capacity, whether it's music or some lesson about like perseverance or struggle, or you know what I mean? It's just always sort of helping me grow, I think, musically and in other ways.
How often do you play? Like, how often do you practice and then gig?
I gig, gigging has like ebbed and flowed. At the moment, I'm gigging about once or twice a week. Cool. And then life is just bonkers right now, so I'm not doing a great job practicing. And I think with this shift of like being done at school and really moving towards like the gallery and music, I have big hopes and dreams for how to like continue just evolving.
Is there always a guitar just hanging out, like just ready to go, like laying on the couch or like on a stand, like in the house at all times?
There's a ukulele out at our house
all
the time, which we just got over the winter and started fiddling on that little cutie.
Okay.
And
I love the sound of a ukulele.
It's adorable. I'm like, it's actually been like pretty good to figure out some like fun little riffs on it, because it is always out.
There's some great songs just based off of ukulele. It's like,
totally. So I am having a lot of fun with that. And so that's easy to like pick up for 10 or 15 minutes. My guitar is always in the same spot at our house. I just have to like open it up and, get ready to get in there.
So like when you practice, like what would a practice session for you be like? When you go into it, like what are you trying to accomplish something, or just randomly just like, I just feel like playing this song?
I just get an itch to play, and I am always writing. So I'm always, whether I'm working on like one song, which is really atypical because there's always like 12 to 15 sort of open-ended ones, and like half of them you're like, this is going nowhere, or like you've already said this, or you've already written this, and so like there is sort of this exploratory piece of like constantly having an album's worth of songs open and ready for your attention depending on the mood.
Okay. So, I mean, is there like when you write music, is there like a thought that goes through your head when you're trying to write it? Is it just kind of like, are you a journaler? Are you like, do you write poetry? It's all.
Yeah, it comes in all different ways. I mean, there's some songs that legitimately feel like they write themselves, and you grab onto that moment and hold it really tight and execute that process because it's like not going to last forever. And then there's some that are never done, and then there's some that are in process for like months, years, it's just.
So when you, are you like, do you do the music first? Or do you do the lyrics first?
I usually do them simultaneously. However, I have, over time, I have started to try and concentrate a little bit more on writing. And I worked with Ryan Mott Blue produced my last album, and workshopping, the process of workshopping with him.
I was gonna say he's an actor. He's a pretty big name, right?
Yeah, he's very well established.
I was gonna say, I've heard him before.
Yeah, he's got his. He has certainly got his.
I'm like, is that a local guy? I'm like, no, I feel like he's a little beyond local.
Yeah. So he was so gracious in producing this album, and we did a lot of workshopping, and I learned an incredible amount in that short amount of time of workshopping through some of these songs, and really becoming more focused on like words, lyrics, the rhythm of things fit together without a guitar in my hand. And I feel like it opened up sort of a new door and a new way of thinking about writing, where it was like I was always thinking about like the music and the lyrics, and your attention is automatically split, and sometimes that works, like, for sure. And then I can also appreciate its drawbacks, know?
Well, so when you, like, do you think of a theme? Do you think of like like one word or a verse or a phrase? Like what kind of triggers a song for you, or a mood that you're just like, I feel like very upbeat right now, or very like sappy and sad? Like, does it?
I mean, the first 20 years of writing were about heartbreak because I like hadn't met my person, And then I was like, oh, well, okay, now what do I write about? Like after, I mean, there's still these, you still think about like, I don't know. Sometimes I will like hear a certain line or something that sort of like triggers a like, oh man, what a beautiful story that could be told from that line. One of the tunes I wrote for the album Storytellers was called 30 Miles. And that was based on like a picture hanging in my room, and just like looking at that picture and imagining what life would look like living in that house in that picture. You know what I mean? And so some of it is just, some of it is real. Some of it's daydreaming. Some of it is not my story, but it's come through me in some way. I know it probably sounds like crazy, but it's like,
well, when you look at like, and this is something I don't do as often as I'd like, but every once in a while you hear a song and then you're like, I love this song.
Yeah.
And you've heard it hundreds of times. And you're like, you know what? I feel like I'm not saying the right lyrics. Like everybody, like they kind of just like,
oh, totally.
Yeah. So then you'll like start looking up the lyrics and you're like, wow, that's what they've been saying these like 20 years been listening to the song. But then you start diving into them, like, well, I don't even know what that means. And then half the time I'm wondering, like, because a lot of times when you hear artists, it's like, hey, like one of the favorite things I like is hearing an artist talk about the song. Like, what's the inspiration, how they wrote it, where they wrote it.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, well, most of them, like, they can't really give you a good answer. And I'm always like, why can't they just give you the story? And half the time I feel like maybe because they're sporadically, like, brains all over the place. But then I also feel like they might not even know, because it might just be something they came and like, I don't even really know where my headspace was at, but I thought this was cool. And like my wife loves Coldplay, and we like Coldplay. And I remember seeing when Yellow. Yeah. And Chris Martin was talking about Yellow, and he was like, he got the word yellow because it rhymed with the melody. He went outside, I think he was talking to somebody, like looked up at the stars, and it opens up like, look at the stars, how they shine for you. And he liked that. And he ended up coming up with the word yellow because he was sitting down thinking, and he looked over and there was a yellow book.
Yes.
And he was just like, yellow. He's like, yellow fits. And like, but you think it's like this very thing. He's like, no, I was actually looking at a yellow book, but it fit the song, but I was kind of going for this theme, but that just kind of fit. And then we just went with yellow. Like, so some of it's not even like, it's almost like a letdown. Like, I wish there was more to the story. And he's like, it really wasn't. It just kind of sounded cool.
It's like, it's not all like super deep and complex, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're like, oh, that word fits. It's like a puzzle, right? And it's like, I like that. That kind of has a ring to it or whatever, and you're kind of figuring out this like interesting wordplay and the rhythm, and not even necessarily, at times, right? Like sometimes you're kind of like throwing words in there to help take up or fill up space in a way, right? To hold place for maybe when you come back to it at some point to like really iron out what it is you're trying to say. And I was listening to a podcast, an interview with John Prine, and he was like, I wrote more songs with a steering wheel in my hand than I ever did a guitar. And I'm like, nothing could be truer. Yeah. I'm like, I feel like all throughout the day or in life in general, right? Like I'm getting these little snippets of a line or a story or a feeling or a conversation. And I think it can be hard to pinpoint for artists, like, like what was going on that made you write this very specific song? And you're like, I have 100 stories going on in my head all at once about like various ideas or songs or themes or sort of like stories in my mind. And they're all sort of spinning, and some of them come out in a song that you're like, oh, I am stoked that worked. And many of them are like, no, throw that away.
I mean, do you get that moment where you're writing a song where you're like, yep, I'm connecting the dots? It's almost like
sometimes, not all the time. Yeah, there's probably a few to a handful of tunes that I feel like I can look back and they were like very clear. They came to me and I'm like very proud of the writing, and then other ones I have a different relationship with.
Like you like limped across the finish line.
Well, that was therapeutic,
okay. Yeah, just to
or
get out of your
like
head.
I had to really get that out there, or sometimes it's like there's this gift of being able to like touch on something or a subject, right, that like really connects with people. And I think that is like the greatest joy of music, of like playing music and writing songs and having someone be like, thank you. Like that is exactly what I'm going through or what I've been thinking about, or right. Like it ends up being this like point of connection, and I am one for connection. I love it in all forms. So I think that's like the language of it,
I was gonna say like people like music is like the universal language. If you take all the lyrics out and just put music, like everybody just feels music. Like I love live music. Like that's I don't know what it is. Like as I've gotten older, I've appreciated live music more, to the point where like most of my events that I take time to go do during the year revolve around a concert.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
like tomorrow we're planning on like going down to Albany and watching a show.
Amazing.
But it's like just going out like a nice summer night, like watching music, live music. And it's like there's something that like lifts up your soul, where you're just like, you feel the energy, and you're just like, whether it's not even like you're in a bad mood and it's just like, you could be in the best mood and have, which is even better. You're in a great mood and go see music, but it just elevates the experience. And
absolutely.
I'm not like I have to be in the front row to listen to a concert.
Yeah.
Like I mean, trust me, I've been in the front row a couple times and they're amazing. But it's also one where like if you're just in there and you're like just feeling like the vibe of the crowd and just the people, it's like a lot of fun.
It is.
So like this, I mean, I'm on your website right now.
Yeah. Yes.
And Nina's Brew, that's like your current gig right now.
So Nina's Brew was born in Burlington in like 2017. Michael and Isaac and I started playing together, and then we like hit fifth gear, and we toured a lot and pretty hard for like 2.5 years. And we probably played like 250 shows in the course of a pretty short amount of time. And, like started to get on a circuit, and the train had left the station, and then, like life is happening, right? Like, Isaac ended up moving, and then we released an album, and then the pandemic rolled in, and Michael ended up moving, and it was just kind of, so the amazing thing is these guys are like my brothers, and we try to get together a handful of times throughout the year to, continue playing together. Michael and I are doing some shows like next week together, and we just went, the three of us just played a couple shows down in central New York at the end of May, and it's just such a joy to like, we sat in my very hot upstairs apartment in Burlington.
Is that this right here?
That sure is. Yeah.
I was watching this earlier. I'm like, I feel like that's
yeah,
upstairs.
that's 100%. Yeah,
Yep.
we sang a lot of music in that very small kitchen, but had great acoustics.
Acoustic,
Yeah. So, and we just like went for it and ended up doing. It was such like a magical little unit, and those guys are just so talented on every level, and I feel like, I've had the fortune of playing with great players, and it's kind of forced you to rise up to the occasion, and they've made me better every step of the way.
Like, so what's this feel like? I've never experienced this, and few have. Like, just standing up here playing and just having, like, there's a good crowd of people there. I mean, there's hundreds of people out in the crowd.
Yeah.
And, like, what's that like standing up there and just playing to people, and, like, people just, like, head bobbing, maybe tapping their foot, just kind of, like, hippie dancing or just chilling? Like, what's that like up there? Because you're the act. You're bringing the energy. You're the person that's like the catalyst of all this like fun out there.
Yeah, it is. It is every feeling you would imagine it to be. And I think the biggest, not even the biggest, but you just know it's an honor to be in that spot, right? And that you've like worked your butt off to get there, and you want to deliver. And you're like, I got to show up and I have to be confident, and I just got to put it all out there, right? Because we're as humans, like we're sponges. So if energy is high and it's hard not to be in a, like on the Burlington waterfront with a couple of
That's what I was wondering.
people.
This is down on the waterfront
Yeah,
there?
this was Tumble Down, which was a festival.
Yeah. Twiddles Festival.
Yeah. So we got to play. It was very cool. Nina's Brew, the full band got to play Grace Potter's Grand Point North in 2018. And that was, we did the sound check for that. And I've never had so many goosebumps in my life because the sound system was
amazing.
Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
Like you sing the first note and you're like, holy shit. Like I didn't know this was all possible.
Yeah.
Right. And so, there are those elements where you're like, you have a moment of pause, like, I am here.
Yeah,
like I
so cool.
am here, and you're just like working your ass off to stay present and feel all the feelings and just show up and do your best. And some of them go off the charts and some of them you're like, I missed some notes there. You know what I mean? And it's like it's such a roller coaster.
But you're in it. So like you missing
in
it.
it.
But I'm saying
Yeah.
like you missing a note is not like to the people in the crowd, they don't know the difference.
Yeah.
Like
No, it's just something you perseverate on the instant you walk off stage. Like, oh God, I missed it.
Do you still get butterflies when you go out?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I do a lot more solo stuff now too. And like so many people, right? Like my confidence has wavered from 0 to 100, and as I've gotten older and just like done this more, it doesn't necessarily get easier. I think I've just like learned some better strategies and had to really talk myself up. Like, I deserve to be here. They're not asking me to play this because they feel bad for me or something crazy. You know what I mean? It's like you really have to be like, I just got to go out there and be an honest version of myself. And if one person can connect to that, then I've done my best. You know what I mean?
Do you get like imposter syndrome when you go out there? Like you feel like you don't deserve it, or you feel like, why are people like watching me?
No, not by the time I walk out there.
Good,
It's all the like lead up stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like once you press play, it's like, nope, I'm in it now. And I have to like do my job, in that sort of way of like, oh, you got to flip the switch from like, artist to like performer because you have been asked to be here to like put on a show, and that is what I need to do at that point.
As I say, when you go out and like this happens, do you just feel like you just settle in and just get in a groove and then like everything just kind of like, muscle memory or whatever, or just like the habit takes over?
Well, that would be amazing if all that
so
happened.
You feel like, because you said
like,
you think about stuff, so you're like, you think you're like working hard to get through this. And I don't know how artists are. I mean, people that go up and play, they make it look effortless. Like they're just strumming and you're like, they're great,
Yeah. And sometimes it feels like you sink into this flow, like anything, if you're an athlete or, whatever, like you hit this sort of flow state. And I have had this experience with music, and sometimes you hit that flow state and other times you're paddling like a boss because you're like, wait, you know what I mean? And you feel like you're kind of just, you're working your butt off to get through it, and there's every experience is so different and every set is so different because it's like sometimes if you're the opener, you've got 30 minutes. Like there's not really time for you to find your flow. Like you got to show up with your flow. Yeah. And then other times you've got 2.5 hours, and it's always interesting with like playing in groups or bands and everybody is showing up with their individual dynamic and then collectively you're trying to find that flow together, and it's like you have these memorable moments, whether solo or with a group, that you're like, oh, we sunk into it. That was like, you kind of like walk away like you don't have the words, because there just aren't. It's just this feeling. And other times you're.
So you get that, like you're in a trio and like all three are just kind of on that same wavelength. And just like, we're like in tune.
Yeah.
Do you feel that when you're up there playing, like making connections, with the guys in the band or whatever, and you're just like, I don't know, like something's clicking tonight. Like something's just a little
at that
bit
point
different.
you're like not even hyper thinking about it because it's working. The thing, like you start thinking about these things when things are going a bit awry. Like, is it me? Is it that? Should I be? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You're kind of like trying to fit where you fit to. You're trying to think about like how you fit together, and when you just fit together, nobody's doing a ton of thinking because you're just in it.
Do you find that you get to enjoy the show more because you're just like playing, but you almost like, because I would think if you're playing and you're watching bandmates play, there's got to be a level of like you're enjoying their work too as you're playing. So it's kind of like it's like
cool.
I'm playing, but I'm like it's almost like a surreal experience. Like I have like one foot in the audience and I have one foot up on the stage.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's like that part is, I feel so fortunate, like with Michael and Isaac, I'm like, those guys are both incredibly talented singers, incredibly talented musicians. And so when they take off, I'm over here, strumming my 3 chords, like, this is awesome. You know what I mean? And I pipe in for a harmony, right?
Yeah, I got the best seat. Like,
yeah, exactly.
Feet away from these guys.
Yeah. So that part is like such a cool shared experience. For sure.
So when you're going on and you have like a crowd like that, like how much of it's crowd work? Obviously you're playing, but like how much do you try to like feed off of a crowd? And again, if you're doing a big gig, like Tumble Down, that's a pretty big regional event. But then you turn around and say you're playing, at a local gig or a local bar, and you have maybe just like a crowd of 20, 30 people having dinner at the bar or something like that. Like how do you, do you work at that? Or is that something just like it just kind of happens? And
I feel like, whether you're playing to 200 people or whether you're playing to, 20 people, it's like you can have the same like flowy, euphoric show in both settings, depending on sort of that like level of engagement. Those small shows are amazing because they're close and you can talk to the crowd and you can have a conversation on a night that it's like working.
Yeah.
Right. And I think you kind of read the room and you get used to reading the room and sometimes, I'm definitely not playing these like quiet sold out shows. I am playing loud places, I'm playing bars, and sometimes engagement is really high. And sometimes I like kind of quote unquote, like know my place and people are just, I am like part of the ambiance. I'm not the reason people are there. Right. And so I don't know. I always kind of like try to show up and put my best foot forward, and you kind of see what comes of the night.
I
part of the excitement.
Well, like sometimes you must know Jay Lesage, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Jay played on Storytellers as well.
Okay. So Jay, fantastic.
Amazing. Oh my gosh.
And so like Jay, who's one of my favorite artists, like just like local guy, but if people don't know him, he's great. I'm sure you've seen him around. So, but you'll go to like, say like Anthony's and he's just like playing and like, but he's like in the background. You can hear him. Like you definitely know he's there, but he kind of has this way of like, just kind of like sinking into the night.
Yep.
And then every once in a while, he'll like play a song that'll catch your ear, or like he'll get a request. Like we go and Gene always like request it, like, hey, Jay, can you play this? And like, he'll be like, yeah, I'll see what I can do. And he starts playing it. And then like midway through, he'll play something, like look over and he kind of like looks over and smirks and just kind of keeps playing. So it's like, so it's kind of, I always like that because I'm like, it's not like you're paying to go see a concert, but it's like a little side thing. But it's, even if you don't acknowledge the person playing all the time, and like hopefully people go and like tip the person playing, but even if they're not doing that, and you're just there and like it's playing, it's like a subtle thing that if it was removed, you would make a big difference.
Totally.
But you're there and you're hearing it. It like adds to the moment, but it completes the moment. And I think like music, when you look at, just places that you go that have live music, it's just like an extra element of like makes it better. It's better than a DJ. It's better than just random songs playing over the radio. It's like when you have that level of just, even if you don't really care to listen to the person, not in a bad way, but you're not like, full attention on, you're like talking with friends, but it's like, it's just, for me, there's something about having live music that if I go in, I'm like, oh, band's here tonight. Or if you go to a bar and like, oh, there's a live band, like it's better. I don't know.
Well, we need you. We need folks that are like psyched about that. And some people, that's not what they're looking for. You know what I mean? Like everybody has their sort of like tastes and they're like, and some people just want to hear like a top 40 list or, and everybody just has this wide range of like, right. There's this wide range of things that people love and enjoy. And some people are, jazzmatazed on live music, and that obviously takes your night to a different level versus the alternative. So it goes both ways,
I'm such a live like if you give me live music, as long like it's just a vibe, and I like that. So regarding like the touring aspect. Like, so when you were touring, you talked about doing cross country tours and stuff like that. Like, how does, and I talked to Taylor about this too, like, how does that work regarding like the band? Are you doing your own management? Are you doing your own bookings? Are you doing your own like sales, merchandise?
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have like always been an independent artist. I've always done my, like everything from A to Z.
Mm-hmm.
So like website updates and management and creation, and then, like logos, merch, booking gigs, all of it. And so, a solo versus a band, it's like very different because obviously with a band, you're running a business in a different way because there's like
more input.
Co-workers, right? And everybody has schedules and lives and things. Like I can do this one. No, I can't do this one. Well, do you want to play this one? It's like it's its own little.
It's a logistical challenge.
Yeah, it is. It's this whole other element. And, at this point, like doing it for myself, it is really time consuming, and it is a lot of, it is a labor of love. Like booking these cross country tours is like, last year, I did like a Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, Arizona loop. And, this year, my partner Will and I are headed out to, the Pacific Northwest to do like Montana, Idaho, Oregon, Washington.
Oh, cool.
I'm like still trying to piece together like one or two more shows. You're blindly emailing like everyone and their mother to try and, score a gig. You send your pitch and hope for the best.
So how does that process work? Let's take your current tour going up in the Northwest. Like when you say, okay, where am I going to play?
Yeah.
And again, I kind of talked to Taylor a little bit about this. Like, is there something you focus on, or is there like venues that you're like either tipped off from someone that you know in the music space, or this is just blindly like Google search who has music? Like
a lot of it is that live music vineyards in, like Idaho, or like you're kind of doing the major searches. And then obviously, with things like social media and just having sort of some of those contacts that you may not normally upkeep in your life. Like, oh, I know, I have like an acquaintance friend that lives in wherever. And, maybe I can reach out to them to be like, hey, do you have any recommendations of 4 or 5 places that, because oftentimes when you look up like live music in a city, like if you were to look up live music Burlington, you're going to get places like Higher Ground, Nectar's, this, that, and the other thing. And like, I'm not going to go play a Higher Ground in a different city where no one knows me.
Yeah.
I'm not at that level at all. And so my goal is to be able to like leverage my capacity to play music and see beautiful spots and put some gas in my car and, make ends meet or whatever and have an amazing trip and an experience out of it. And that was exactly what happened last year. And it was, it was awesome. But we also went to places where I lived in Durango, Colorado. So I knew people there, had some really good friends in Denver, went to Flagstaff, lived in Flagstaff for a couple, you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, last year was a little bit of a different story because I sort of had these little points of contact and something that I could add into my pitch. Like, hey, I've still got a bunch of friends in town, lived there in the, so-and-so time frame, like am confident that I can drum up a bit of an audience. Whereas like the places we're going this year, like I know nobody.
So the places you're going this year, is this purely like, this is like on the G bucket list of like places I want to visit?
This is places I want to visit.
Okay, so this is like selfishly, like I'm picking these locations.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. I'm like, let's go play in the mountains. Okay, for a month. So
who's do you take any inspiration from any musicians, any songwriters that are like really like idols of yours, or are you pretty much like I just try to do my own thing and I don't really listen to a lot of music and I am
listening to music any and all of the time. And it's so funny because whenever I get sort of asked this question, I feel like I just instantly black out and I'm like, oh, I feel like I've never listened to music. Cause I'm like, when someone's like, oh, name your top 3 albums. I'm like, oh, paralysis of trying to figure out what could possibly be the top 3. And they're not at just like answers in my pocket. And they change because, right, like our tastes change and this, that, and the other thing, or they can change. I guess there's obviously some all-time favorites, but like the powerhouses, obviously like Bonnie Raitt, Susan Tedeschi, right? Yep. Like I, grew up with my dad listening to like huge Allman Brothers fan, you know, a lot of like BB King and just like blues, jammy, you know. My brother did like a lot of Grateful Dead. My sisters were more into like R&B hip hop, which was really cool. So I feel like I have this very sort of like eclectic across the board interest in music from A to Z. And I like to explore and dive into it all. I've been on a real bluegrass kick as of late, which has been really, you know, because it's a totally different like style of playing. And so, you know, in terms of like stretching and growing on this instrument, it's really fun to.
So you dive a little bit into bluegrass?
Well, I mean, I really enjoy listening to it.
Yep.
I would definitely not consider myself a bluegrass player because I just can't keep up with that pace.
Like I've seen like the Gibson Brothers live, and those guys are so good. And like,
amazing.
And when you watch them just play, and like they got the guy in the fiddle, and they got the guy in like the stand-up bass or the cello or whatever, and I mean their fingers are just going, and the banjo, and I'm like, but it's like bluegrass is one of those. If I'm in the mood, I'm like, you're gonna go to a bluegrass like music concert, festival, whatever. Like I like the music. It's not like. It's also not something I'm constantly playing bluegrass, but like every once in a while, like even like around a campfire, someone puts bluegrass. I'm like, I like that. Like it's just like,
it's very.
Something
I
to
mean,
it.
yeah. I mean, and it's in its own little category, but it's just so I am like somebody that gets turned on to something new, and I just belly flop in and I take the plunge and I go hard, and I'm like, I'm
dark
gonna
webs of
listen
all the
to, you know, it's like if I come across a song I love, I'm like, I will listen to this song 800 million times for, you know what I mean? And then I'm like, okay, that was satiated. Like next, you know.
Is there? I was gonna say, are there a couple artists that you continually listen to, or are you like you really try to venture out and just try new artists, or you kind of like fall back? Like, nah, I kind of have a core like 5 to 10 groups that I'm always or singers I always kind of fall to.
You know, I don't feel like I have 5 or 10 that I kind of always come back to. I've been listening to, you know, Dwight and Nicole are a really amazing group out of Burlington. And I just got to sing backup vocals for their album release party. And they're like a soul bluesy, I mean, just incredible. So I was like listening to that album on repeat for like days and days and days and days and days. And it's incredible. And definitely encourage folks to check it out. You know, I've always been a fan of Ryan's, and we became friends. He's also based out of Burlington. We became friends, and, you know, and then sort of worked on Storytellers together. And I've always been a huge fan of his writing. And then I feel like I kind of been listening to a lot of John Craigie, Watch House. These are like things as of recent that I've been, you know, and then I'll take the kind of plunge into the like JJ Cale and some of those guys that, you know, and depending on my mood, I guess. And then other times I'm like, I need the roots, you know. It's like I go all over the place.
No, it's like, is there any music that you just don't listen to, or don't like? You're like, that's just. I mean, it's music, but I'm like, this is just not my style.
I mean, I don't think I would like. There really isn't any that I am like strongly adverse to. I don't like opt to listen to a lot of classical music, but I certainly don't. I appreciate it for what it is. Like I don't.
Bach, Beethoven, Mozart.
Yeah,
that kind
I mean,
okay.
I wouldn't throw that on. I've literally never thrown that on. I'd be 100% lying to you, but I certainly appreciate it.
I was thinking the other day, I'm like, what would be worse? And I love music, but I do find if I had to like fall into a category, it's like acoustic folk jam band, like that kind of vibe. Like I like guitar, I like music. I don't like. I don't really like the electric music, like the Steve Aoki, like Skrillex, that kind of stuff. That's like, that's not like some people like it, like working out and stuff. I'm like, I don't like that. I'm not like a heavy. I'm not into like Disturbed and that kind of music, and then I'm not into like opera. I was thinking the other day, I'm like, what would be worse, like going to an opera or going to like a heavy metal, like, you know, like a Anthrax, like just like a band that I'm like, that's, and I'm like, I don't know what would be like.
But the thing is, I mean, I have to say, I feel like I've seen a lot of live music that I wouldn't necessarily like pop on my, you know, like,
but it's good
on in my
live.
car. But there is just this different element of a live performance that you can 100% appreciate like a band that is doing their thing and they're kicking ass and they're up there like with a vibe that's like maybe not your kind of music, but there always for live music, I feel like is some sort of draw for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm just intrigued. You know what I mean? And it's like, no, I would not go drive 5 hours and listen to like scream punk probably. But a live music experience is so different.
I think if someone said like, hey, there's a show going on like 20 minutes away and we're going, do you want to go to it? I would probably be like, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Like what? It's same thing. It's live music. So
Totally.
if I had to pick, I thought opera, but I feel like I would probably go with like a heavier metal band, knowing that they have a little bit more, like they probably have a little bit more than I know. Where opera is very like opera. Like it's one of those where I'm like, I very much appreciate this talent, but I'm like,
but there's always like some really like intense story accompanying opera. It feels like so.
I'm sure there is.
I mean, I also like don't jam to a lot of opera ever. But I'm like, and I've never been to like a traditional like opera performance.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's, I guess from the little I know, so I probably shouldn't be overgeneralizing here, but it feels like there's some sort of like theatrical element to it that I feel like I can get engaged in beyond the music.
I mean, like you said, there's definitely more than the stereotype of it.
Yeah.
And I definitely fall into like the totally ignorant, like I have never heard of opera besides like what you would see like.
Yeah, totally. No.
So let's go like art. So now the art aspect, and I'm going to talk about art, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to have you play because I love listening to music.
Awesome.
And again, I feel like I get very like spoiled because I get a free show. Like
it's great.
Just
it's
chilling
great.
here.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
So the art aspect. So we have Marigold Gallery in Vermont, and I know you're doing the mural. I'll let you explain the mural if you want.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's like a hush hush kind of thing, but
no, it's out in the.
Julia told me, so I feel like it's kind of
out in the great wide open.
Okay,
yeah.
so can you talk about kind of like how you got into art, into Marigold, into mural.
Yes, so I have been like drawing and painting my entire life. I have always like had a love for it, and I minored in art when I was at Ithaca. So I did a lot of oil painting. That was kind of my medium that I used, and then kind of like shifted gears pretty completely to music. And so art was, like a recreational thing here and there. But I've like, over the years have painted, like my sister would be like, hey, come paint the boys' room, and have me do some sort of like random little mural for those guys or whatever it is. So I have to think about the timeline here. So prior to opening Marigold, I had done every year like a series of pop-up art shows because I started playing around with acrylic paint.
Okay.
And painting canvases and really enjoyed like I am a relatively fast painter and I love like the quick drying, the like layering. I love a lot of texture. I love bold color. I like to start a piece and kind of finish it, although I'm getting better about like working on a few pieces to keep me entertained so I'm not like forcing a piece to be done because that doesn't always work out that great. So I'm learning a lot as time goes on about sort of my habits and tendencies and which ones are working for me and which ones are not, which is maybe one of the benefits of being a school psychologist. Like I can use some of these tools. So I did these like, I would paint like 20 paintings, relatively all one size, do these pop-up art shows. And things were getting like pretty well received because I am so grateful for the Plattsburgh community, the community over in Burlington. People have just been incredibly supportive far and wide. And I 1000% would not be able to do either of these two.
Did you paint that?
No, so that's actually a photograph of a, with like a filter on it, but I painted the like, this is just like the video, it's time lapse of the mural.
Oh.
Yeah. And so eventually at the end, so that's the mural in the gallery.
And I saw that up above. This is.
Yeah. We're watching the video to 30 miles in case you were wondering about the tangent.
Yeah. Sorry. I saw it. I'm like, this is.
It's okay.
Gotcha. Sorry, I'm like,
Yeah, no, it's
I'm
all
like
good.
shiny object. I'm like, that is amazing. It looks so cool.
All good.
Sorry, keep going.
No, so did these, like pop-up art shows, and then in 2020, in November of 2020, after like obviously months of not playing music and just feeling like I am gonna go bonkers if I do not have some sort of like outlet that is creative, that is like feeding my fire. So I found a really incredible space in Burlington, and decided to just go for it and open this, turn this space into a gallery space. And and then started doing like, so I have one wall at the gallery that I've now done 2 murals on, and it is once again white. And so I'm getting ready to do a 3rd mural. So I like paint these murals, time lapse the process. So far I've made like 2 music videos out of them. And then I'll start this new one.
Do you paint over it and restart?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So I paint it, and then I will like prime over it when I'm over it and begin anew.
But every time you paint, you document it, so you actually kind of still have it.
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, that's
so
cool.
it's pretty cool because
Yeah.
it sort of like evolves into a different medium at that point. And and so Marigold has been a really amazing launching pad, and so I'm getting ready to shift like full time into the gallery space and seeing what I can make work, because I obviously have like a long-term vision. Well, I guess this wouldn't be obvious to people, but I have a long-term vision for the space to, like cross-section with music and with art. And it's a really like special, cool, cozy space. And I'm hoping that, to be able to like host some events and just ways to bring people together, whether it's for a workshop or for like a storytelling night or for, like a music performance, or just ways for people to get out and be together in a space that feels good. And we pop a little joy into people's lives, and then they take their joy and scoop.
So I don't know if I feel like I knew you did this, but maybe not. You did the Harrigans?
I did, yeah. So I did Harrigan's back in October when we were blessed with like a few weather windows, and yeah, super fun. So I'm gonna
So cool.
tackle the other side of the building in the fall. They asked me to come back and do that.
So before I was doing what I do now, like for 7 or 8 years, I served ice cream.
Yes.
So I served ice cream out of that building for like a few months. I had to fill in like 1 year.
Okay, yeah.
And so I know this like building very well, but it's also one where that just looks, I say I've seen it in person, but it's kind of cool to see the whole thing.
Yeah, it's really fun. So these like
I love the colors.
Gradient mountain scenes. Yeah, so I went and color matched the original like Harrigan's blue
That's beautiful.
color.
Yeah.
And then basically from there you just go up the paint chip, right? And like gather like one quart of paint for each layer that you need. So yeah, there was like 6, and then we looked up the
That's so cool.
yeah, the elevation at that like spot, and made the little like Adirondack tip of the hat to the Adirondacks with the brown and yellow signs.
How hard is it to paint on a scale, like at scale? Meaning you're painting large murals.
Yeah, I like to work big. So I'm definitely like...
so that just fits you. That's like comes natural. Like I say, more natural. Like
Yes. I feel like my hair is big. My personality is big. I like to paint big. It just sort of, oh my gosh, I was like tasked with doing, I don't do a ton of like commissioned paintings because it just is, they're difficult for me. But every once in a while,
you feel pressure to have to get it done.
Yeah, it's an interesting. It definitely shifts sort of the approach, and you want a person to feel, you just know you have 2 different expectations of what success and a finished product might look like, and that is a little scary, because you want to please whoever is, supporting you. And it's like, but then there's this room for like, oh, that's not what I was expecting kind of thing. And I'm like, that feels so scary.
Well, I look at, you talk about like the mural itself, and like I always think of like, they obviously have the one of Michael Anderson up on the, above Betty Little Park, and that one's cool. But then there's the one of Jean Arthur. Is it Jean Arthur?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is just amazing.
Which is mind blowing because of the location where it's at. like the one. I mean, you see the one of Michael Anderson all the time because it's like a very open exposure place. But when you see the Jean Arthur one, you don't expect it. And all of a sudden, you like turn the corner and you're like, oh my God. And
it's amazing.
I've seen it multiple times now, and I still get that feeling
yeah.
of like that. Yeah, it's stunning. Like this is amazing.
Yeah.
But that like level, that doesn't intimidate you, like something at that scale.
So the style of that would be if someone was like, hey, go paint a giant face, I would find that terrifying. Yes, because it's like I love painting mountains, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And there is a different level of detail on those two things, right? And I'm somebody that loves color. I love to play with color. You know, I am not like a refined fine artist with, you know, the level of attention to detail that making a face look alive and three-dimensional and just glow and beautiful is a whole different realm that I'm like, oh, that is not you don't want me to do that. You know, like it's like anything, right? Like you don't want, you don't want to ask the punk metal guy to cover the bluegrass tune for like your wedding first dance, right? Like these are things that you're like, but sometimes it might work, but like by and large, like I'm not your person for that. But if you want me to pick a bunch of big, bold colors and paint in, you know, these sort of like giant shapes and create something, like I am down for that. So I'm not perfect for it, but I am down. I'm definitely, that doesn't feel super scary, but yeah, there's many other things that do.
So have you done any of the outside art locally? Or
so the only other one that I've worked on is in Keysville.
Oh yeah, on the wall there.
Yep. So I was the artist that was, you know, all of these huge murals are a collection of like many artists.
Yeah.
You know,
and a lot at like one time doing the same collaborative work.
And Julia and Amy that, you know, hedge outside art Plattsburgh are just absolute like amazing gems that do so much work behind the scenes to gather a bunch of people, and then you add on like artists to that, which many of us can fall into this like, oh, we've got a million things going on and we're kind of like hard to pin down and deadlines can be difficult and like, you know, not to overgeneralize, but I certainly speak for myself and I am included in that, like where it's like, oh my God, I've overcommitted, right? But nonetheless, and so all of these like masterpieces by and large have been the work of many artists, whether behind the scenes or the actual painting. So, so for the one in Keysville, I was charged with the like that grid sky.
Okay.
So I got to pick all the like colors and kind of, you know, tackle that, which was really, really cool. And then, this one. So Andy McGill and I are the lead artists on this mural that's going on the side of Aleka's, which is the biggest wall I've ever done. It's like 30 feet high because it's a 3-story building. So ish. I don't know if these are like, and then, I mean, I'm assuming it's got to be like a good 50 feet across.
I would think. And
So.
I
mean, we have like a lift and all the cool things like that. So.
Well, so Julia told me about it, and and I'll let you explain what it's going to be, but she ended up telling me about it. I'm like, that is literally the perfect spot. There's so many people that come kind of down that narrow way, and and the thing is, you can see that wall quite a distance away.
Totally.
Because there's no obstruction to your view for probably since from the government center on, you can kind of start seeing that whole wall. So you get a whole chance to really like look into it.
Yeah, so we're doing like a sort of a nod to an old-fashioned postcard. So it's going to say, welcome to Plattsburgh, the Lake City, and it will be a lake, mountain, sky, and then the lake will feature we have like a geologist coming. I mean, they're putting these things that are very unique and important to the area, and that also just like geologically and like environmentally makes sense. So we'll have a bunch like a handful of different fish species, and then we're having other artists come in to do a few different sailboats. We're having, of course, Champy's getting a little shout out. I was going to say,
you know what I heard the other day? There was a couple that I was talking to. Quick aside, there was one guy was from New York, the other one was from Vermont. New York, we call him Champy. In Vermont, and you're from both sides now, so like they call him Champ. Is that true, or do you find that?
He doesn't come up in conversation a lot for
Okay.
me. So.
So someone's like champion, or like, and she's like, it's champ. I'm like, I
That's
didn't
really
know
funny.
there was like,
I didn't know there was like a distinction.
yeah.
No,
So I guess east and west side of the water got a different
right.
term. But sorry,
Okay, I'm gonna have to mess with that a little.
Yeah, bring Champy over to the East Coast. Yeah.
So yeah, we are getting ready to kick that off on next Monday. Actually, we start.
Wow. Oh.
Yeah, and so we start that next Monday, and then I
So it'll
take
be
off.
done this summer.
Oh, it'll be done by the end of the month. I leave for my trip June 29th, so I'll just be like rolling and Andy.
So this will be done in probably 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, by the end of the month, it should definitely
Wow,
be
that's
done.
fast.
Maybe with the exception of like a handful of details, but like for the most part, I mean, we're on operation like cover 150 feet of wall. So
Wow,
Yeah.
that's cool.
Yeah.
So, so like the whole thing, like the detail of this, like how does this start? Like who comes up with this? Is it collaborative? Do you guys sketch out like a piece of paper like this?
We
with
do
the idea?
all of these things.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So there's kind of like an initial idea that like Julia and Amy will come up with. I guess depending who's involved sort of on the back end of things. And then they go through and choose a couple of folks to be sort of the lead artists and who might be a good fit for what they're asking for. And then start to bring in these other elements. And then, we go from there. So we've had one meeting to sketch out some things, and then Andy and I have met because we had to do a bunch of color choices and start to kind of you kind of just have to like jump into it and start making some decisions because the design alone, right? Like we could go back and forth on this for months and months and months, right? And then also thinking about the like our timeline, the level of the hugeness of the actual wall and like what we can get done with, we can't rent a lift for 3 months. Like it's like, okay, what do we need to do to sort of like make this happen within a budgeted amount of finances and with the people and the resources, and how are we gonna, make it look beautiful?
So, I mean, I'm always I guess it's a basic question. I don't think I asked Amy or Julia this, but like, what kind of paint do you use? Is there a specific type of paint, or is this just like
it's like exterior house paint?
And that's
and so the big thing is like you just have to get that's like part of the thing when you're working on this massive scale. It's like you don't want to be doing a ton of color mixing that you would normally do when you're sitting with a canvas, right? So you have to think about like, okay, what ways can we do these like big blocks of color? And
so very much like one color. There's not like a blending. It's kind of like
initially initially it's and this is how I think about it, right? Like everybody has their own sort of like process and how this works for them, but I think about it in like laying like big blocks of color down, and then it's like, okay, let's get in there with like some highlight colors, and like where can we put a line that's going to give this a shadow to give it some depth, and like those kinds of details I think start to work themselves out a bit more because I'm not experienced with painting walls the size of like a 3-story building.
Yeah.
So this will be new in terms of I have painted a lot of murals, but not this size.
So when you like, I guess the other thing too is if you're like driving up and just because of the actual like the ratio of what you're dealing with, and you're looking up at it, like how. Like a small detail on paper could be just something very small and, like you said, blends in. Up on a wall, like that small detail could be feet wide.
Correct.
So, like, is that kind of trippy to do when you're, say, up on a scaffolding and you're painting? You're like, I feel like this 3-foot wide thing is now way too big. But then when you step back, you're like, actually, I got to go like another foot more on this.
I mean, even with painting like murals in the gallery, right? Like I cannot tell you how many times I walk to and from the wall. Like a million times. And that's on that's like a normal, like 8 feet by 12 feet, you know what I mean? And that sort of like back and forth perspective. But the amazing thing is having all of these artists at the table, right, is for the conversation to be like, okay, I don't need to step back. Tell me what I need to do because I'm the one up in this lift or I'm the one on the ground, and sort of that conversation, which is the amazing thing about collaborating on something this size. Like doing this by yourself would be really, really difficult and challenging. And the collaborative, aspect brings so much to the table, but including just those, like everything you were saying, right? Some of those small decisions that we can take for granted on a piece of paper that end up being kind of big decisions when you're thinking about this massive wall, and to be like, you know, what do I need, or how far does my line need to go over? Or does this mountain need to get bigger? And, you know, those kinds of things.
Like
So
how
it's-
does that work? Like when you're on scaffolding, like boom
so
down.
we're in a lift. We're in a lift.
Okay.
And Amy assures us that she is a profesh when it comes to operating a lift.
But
So-
like when you're like you talk about like, but if you're painting a mural and you're standing on the ground 8x12, and maybe you're standing on like a step stool or something,
Yeah.
it's very easy to get down, walk back, and look. Like when you're
Totally.
up on a lift and you're like painting,
Uh-huh.
like do you go like okay all the
I've
way
never
down?
been on a lift to paint.
Okay, I'm always curious because I'm
Holy
like that's
Moses.
just that seems like it's a lot of.
Yeah.
It's just like it's the same idea, but it's just
Yeah.
more of a tedious process because then you're like in your head. I know it sounds silly, but like you're in your lift, and naturally people are like, it's like anything else. Like I just feel too lazy to go down and check, so I'm just gonna just like go with it.
Yeah, and that's where you have to have like folks that you're working with that you really trust, right? And then you have these conversations. Like I can,
Or
you know,
someone that
if
maybe is on the
if
ground.
Andy's up in the lift, right? I can be like, "Oh, bring your line over 3 more feet," right? And that will
That's
that's
so
what it
crazy.
needs, right? And you build that trust with each other, and because you know you're all in it to make a beautiful piece of art,
Yeah.
right? And everybody wants to deliver, and so that's it, you know, it's the difference of being a solo performer and playing in a band, right? And you're like, everybody wants to deliver here.
So on both of these, so art, band,
Yeah.
we talk about lead artist. Is there like what's the hierarchy in both? Like in painting in the band, is it 100% like you got a trio? Is it really split, 33, 33, 33? Do you guys find that like, no, we've designated, G as our captain, like our leader, whatever, or same thing with the art? Do you find, because I find if you have like everybody kind of trying to do something and people don't really have like roles, and not roles of like you're more important or less important to me, but it's almost like, let me just own this part, you own this part, and then we all collectively work together, or that we're not stepping on people's toes, or we're not like, do you take it? Do I take it? Like,
Yeah.
do you find, I don't know how that works
It
on
is
either
a
of these.
dance. I mean, it is a dance, and everybody does it so differently, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
bands, you talk to fellow people that are in bands, and they, run things. There is a spectrum of how things are run. And I think, I haven't been a part of these huge collaborative like art projects enough to be like, this is how it works, aside from the fact that there is a constant conversation going on with people who are trying to make decisions. And like anything, right? Like you come in like open-minded, flexible, you got to give, you got to take. And then because the bottom line is like decisions need to be made, right?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to be the one that comes to the table and is like, this is how we're going to do it, right? And so I think just coming in with, at least on my end, and of course, like every time you participate in something like this, the first year Nina's Brew was together versus the third year, right? Like these conversations shift and change, and you learn more and you figure more out, and you're like,
Or even build the trust of like,
and just because it's everybody's, there is no formula for how to do this and to keep everybody like happy and as low stress as possible. And you're just trying to always like dial that in, because for whatever any of us are doing, right? Like when we can feel present and not bogged down, and we can feel, like passionate and, informed and ready, like we're going to feel confident and really good about what we're delivering. So like any team, like you want everybody to be valued and come into the table with ideas. And, that all sounds like ideal. That is not the way it works on the regular, but you're always aiming for that, right? Like you're always aiming to get that like more oiled and just better.
yeah. So like when you guys started, like how does the process of coming up with a song? Is this just like, okay, let's say you have an idea for a song. Do the other guys just say, hey, G, run with it? Bring your ideas, bring the lyrics, bring the whole kind of vibe of the song, and we'll fill in the gaps and kind of maybe polish it. And do you guys all take turns on that? Or is it more of like, no, G's our singer-songwriter, we fill in the gaps with our music, and we'll do like the harmonies and the backing vocals, but we kind of follow her lead on a song, or vice versa, whoever.
Yeah. So, in talking about like Nina's Brew specifically, like original music that we played like were songs I wrote and brought to the table. And the guys, like we we honestly kind of just like started playing together, and then we started playing out, and then we started playing out a ton, and our set and our songs just evolved in front of audiences over the course of years. Like we did not sit down and make sort of these like decisive, by and large, we did not make these like decisive decisions. We really only ever made those types of decisions if we went in to do some recording, because you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and so, that process is, and then, Michael and Isaac does a lot of writing, and, so we'll play some of his tunes here and there. And, we like jump in and try to add the layers, but it's not like you take this, fill in this. It's just, it's a bit of an unspoken sort of.
So like what percentage of like when you go out and you play, like, well, who comes up with the set, like the set list? Do you have an established set list before you step on stage?
Sometimes.
Okay. Sometimes you just kind of like, let's play this.
Yeah.
Okay.
We would have looking back, right? Like Michael and Isaac and I have also, since like that time, we've all played a bunch of shows. Everybody's gotten, 4 or 5 years older. And so you start to dial in some of these things, but we would, pretty regularly not roll in with a set list and just, we'd have our like 4 to 5 go-tos in the beginning to kick things off. And then it would kind of be like, let's see what we're looking at in terms of like crowd and engagement and what the room sounds like and what the energy level is. And do we have room to bring something down to a quieter tune? Do we have room to get big? Do we need to get big?
Yeah.
Do we play a great cover to capture people's attention? Like you were mentioning with Jay, it's like you play something that you just know people are going to know, and then you hope you can keep their attention for one more tune. Right.
Yeah.
So it's kind of always ebbing and flowing.
So like in the course of a concert, how much is structured and how much is improvised? Or like a gig? Like if you go out and you're like, hey, we're going to play this song, do you guys just go off and like, hey, let's have someone take a solo, or we were a lot of improvisation. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like I said.
It's like, you have like verse, chorus, bridge, right? And it's like, those parts are set in stone. We know our harmonies on those. We sing those pretty predictably because we're 3 people that need to be able to listen to each other and, jump in and jump out when needed. But a lot of the music in between all that was pretty improvised.
So when you guys are playing, and let's say like someone's maybe doing a solo or going off and doing like something, like how do you guys, I'm always fascinated with like bands that they kind of go off, because there's bands that just play like a very linear song. They start from the beginning, they go from start to finish, they hit all, like kind of what you hear on like a record or something.
Yeah, totally.
And then you get a live version, and there's a lot of improvisations or solos. There's kind of like people just like maybe, someone, and again, I was talking with Taylor again, she goes, like, sometimes there's just a couple people vibing and they're doing something. I'm just like quietly strumming a couple notes just to like fill in like a very subtle sound. But when you're going in, like, how do you bring it all back together? Because I find that bands that, like, I'm a massive Dave Matthews Band fan. So when I watch them play and you see them go and they're all going off, and all of a sudden they almost like, and like, boom. And like on almost like a beat, they're all back on the same melody. And I know that's years of playing, but.
That is time.
But I'm always curious. I'm like, is there a structure? Is there, like I think Taylor was saying, like every once in a while you might play and you'll hear someone like maybe hit the hi-hat on the drums, and that's like kind of your cue, like this is our last like maybe measure around kind of thing.
Totally.
So you guys have those like little, like,
there's
nuance
like if communication is 80% nonverbal, it is particularly that with a band. Yeah, because you're just doing a little bit of a head nod, or you're like, we know we're going to kind of do a 12 or 16 bar thing here, but if somebody's going and it's working, like, let's stretch this out kind of thing. And it's a look, it's a look, and it's like a head nod, like, all right, let's bring it back. Or it's a chord change or progression, or somebody kind of starts to pick up the familiar rhythm again, right? And then it's like, all right, let's sink back into it.
So that's it. Like, and I'm very nerdy and like science, and I'm very like when you say like I'm a planner, like I'm fine with things going off, but I'm like I always want to make sure that I'm like prepared and ready. So when I'm like, I watch people in a band, and most people I feel like are very just kind of like more flowy than like structured. But I'm always like the science part of it, and I don't even know if it's really a science, but like the idea of like there's something there where it's not there's improvising, but there is a structure and there is
Definitely.
And I always find that very like I've seen a lot of live music and I always am like baffled where I'm like they just make it look so effortless and like they tie it in and they just like tighten it up. And again, someone that's not in the music, like the actual playing of music.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I'm just like a total, like I like having a drink and listen to music. But,
Yeah.
but like when you watch it and like there's an appreciation for just like the vibe of it. Like you mentioned the Grateful Dead before. Like I love the Dead, but they'll jam on a song for 25 minutes and all of a sudden they come back and I'm like, some people don't like the jam. I don't mind the jam, but they come in. I'm like, they just completely brought that right around or played 3 songs and came back in. And it's like, it's just.
It is
cool.
it's a full conversation just as we're having here, right? Like there's not been some sort of, we did not have a plan for what we were going to talk about. You know what I mean? Yeah. But it's like, I'm confident the conversation is going to flow because I have things to say and you have questions to ask and like, vice versa. And it is that same conversation put to, an instrument and then time and trust in your people. And yeah, I mean, just years and years of playing together will 100% sort of like lend itself to being able to hone in those conversations. It's like, I'm sure with, I can say this because Gina and I are friends, I'm sure there's like a look that you can get from Gina and you know exactly what she's saying without her having to say anything or vice versa, right? Or like your kids, right?
Or mannerisms.
Like, totally. Yeah. And you're like, oh, we're ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so you just, and that is like the very beautiful thing about bringing that to like a song. It is that conversation over music.
You want to play a song? Play something?
Yeah, I'd be happy to play a song. I got to take my headphones off for a moment.
No, you do your thing.
Reach the things.
I will. I'll fill in the dead space. But so I love when people bring their music here because it just adds an element and it's great. You also got long strings at the end of the guitar.
I do.
Do you cut them or just let them?
I let them. Sometimes I cut them.
Okay.
But it's interesting.
See, this is the difference. Like I got to cut those. I got to have the clean look at the end. But I'm not a good guitar player, so.
We'll give this guy a little tune because she's.
We got a Martin.
Warm. Yeah.
Is that your favorite kind of guitar?
Yes.
And what makes it?
Yeah.
It's just like, is there something that like jumps
There's
out,
just
either
like a
sound
tone.
or the tone?
Yep. Yeah. My first guitar that I was saying that I got for my high school graduation from an uncle was like a 1956 Martin.
Oh, wow.
And it is just a beautiful, beautiful little baby. And I have tried other guitars and I continue to come back to Martins and they I don't know. Do I need to put those back?
No. Have you ever been to Dick's Country Oasis?
Yeah.
That is like, if nobody's ever been up there in Cherubusco, this place, like, it literally is an oasis. It comes up out of, like, middle of nowhere. It's like guns, gas, guitars, and groceries.
Yeah.
And you just show up and they...
all your needs.
Arguably have probably, like, the best guitar selection.
Yeah, it's
like,
amazing.
It's just weird, but
you could spend an unbelievable amount of time in that place.
But it's so cool, but you don't expect it. You walk in
No.
like, this is not really a thing. You walk in like, oh my God, this is like legit. This is as legit as it gets. So you can play whatever your heart desires right now.
This is a tune called Mixtape.
Okay.
Made you a mixtape. Had him sing all the things I couldn't say, and I thought it might be a little bit easier. It's a really weird mix, oh, it's got so many of my favorite lines. Well, I thought you might have a listen. Stop and rewind. Made you a mixtape. Got a couple real slow ones, well, it's happy and sad and everything that's in between. I hope you like number 10. It's really my favorite. It's from that movie. I'm sure you know the one. Well, I made you a mixtape. Even made the artwork too, and I used a green Sharpie. I was trying to make it look cool. Hope you like number 9. Got the word love in the title. Made me nervous to put it on there. But like I said, well, I made you a mixtape. Had him sing all the things I couldn't say, and I thought it might be a little bit easier. Made you a mixtape. Had him sing all the things I couldn't say, and I thought it might be a little bit easier. Let the music tell the story. Let the music explain it. They all say it so poetically. A little tune and some honesty. Well, I made you a mixtape. Had him sing all the things I couldn't say, and I thought it might be a little bit easier. I made you a mixtape. Had him sing all the things I couldn't say, and I thought it might be a little bit easier. That's that one.
So okay, let's go back. So when did you write that song?
I wrote that song, and Nina Sprue was playing together at the time, so probably like 2017-ish.
And is there a story behind it?
I was listening to a podcast, and they were talking about people were talking about like handing mixtapes over to DJs, and sort of, you know, you make a mixtape, you hand it over to a DJ, you have these conversations. And I just was like so nostalgic in that
absolutely.
sentiment, you know, and I was like, oh my gosh, I spent so much time pouring my heart and soul into these, you know, love letters that are mixtapes, right? Where you have one person in mind, you're making this for them, and you're picking like all of the tunes that weave together to, you know, make this little musical story.
I was gonna say, I think anybody making a mixtape doesn't randomly put songs on. They made it for like a friend or a significant other, or like or a bunch of buddies or something like that. Where it's
for sure,
or a sports team, even just like making a mixtape for like a warm up.
What's
song.
gonna feel good? Like
if ever kids doing that, like I gotta come up with the mixtape. I gotta have like good music on
100%. Yeah.
So like something like that. How was that, like one that kind of poured out, or was that one like okay? That's
that one kind of poured out because I came up with that like guitar riff that I, you know, like the intro part of it, right? And
it's catchy, it's poppy, like,
and that was like the thing that sort of and I have no idea what happened first, aside from the fact that I listened to that and I got the idea about like reflecting on a mixtape, and the nostalgia I felt just listening to that conversation, and I was like, duh, like.
So when you pick so, and again, I'm assuming this is based on like how the song would go up and down or different, like when you pick chords, but like when you're going and you're strumming chords and you're kind of mixing it up, it looked like you had like G, you had some C, you had a couple ones that I wasn't really sure what they are, you're sliding, but like when you're starting to put those in there, like, are there some where you're like, this just feels like it's going to be this chord progression, or do you just kind of like play and like, I don't even know what this chord is, but it sounds good?
Yeah, it's a combination.
Okay.
Yeah, I am not someone that thinks about, because I don't know. This is like a lack of knowledge. Like, I don't know what should or shouldn't, quote unquote, come next. Like, according to like, you
theory
know, like, oh, the 1, 4, 5. You know, I'm like, I don't know. I just want to like. Sometimes I will write something on guitar and I'm like, oh, I really like where that's going. Or I have a melody in my head and I'm like, I need my voice. I want the song to go here. And like, what do I need to do on my guitar to match that? Or where is that going to sit? How are those?
What was the first song you ever wrote?
Walk Away, I think, was the first song I ever wrote.
How old were you? Or how long ago was this?
18 maybe. So it was
Do you still know how to play it?
21 years ago.
Do you still know how to play it?
I know the it's hold on. Okay, yeah, hold on. All right, I'm gonna take these back
No,
off
that's fine,
because it's
yeah.
just hitting. It's like something like
I like that. I like that. I like that melody.
It's like something. It actually like kind of like has a mixtape vibe, which is kind of funny playing them right after another because it's been a really long time since I've even like strummed this
But
pattern.
sometimes it's like just like it's very like hypnotic. Like it just you play it and you kind of just like get in a groove and you're like I don't even. This just feels very like just smooth and relaxing.
Oh, well, thank you. I
Like
appreciate
doesn't it? I mean, do you get that at all when you play it? And like
Yeah,
sometimes
yeah.
you just play the same thing over and over. And this could be just practicing. You like play the same
Yes.
progression. And it's almost
Definitely.
like I'm just like I don't even know. I'm just like almost in this like zoned out state.
Yeah,
It-
100%. Yes, it's very easy to get into that, which is really, which is really nice. I'm sure. Yes, bless my partner Will that puts up with me like playing the same thing for like 2 hours straight. He's probably like, oh my god,
Yeah.
like I've just been listening to these 4 chords. For,
But at least it's smooth. It's not like I'm sure. Even
They're
worse.
not all like this.
Even worse would have been your parents listening to the alto sax the first few years.
Oh,
like,
100%.
oh my god,
Yeah. Oh,
gee,
gosh.
come on,
Oh,
like
yeah. Truly.
That's I was gonna say that has a little more,
Like,
a little
I'm
more
sorry.
screech, a little more screech than guitar.
Definitely.
So,
Definitely.
so the other thing, like did strumming come natural to you? I find strumming so hard.
No, I'm still figuring all that out. I am still figuring all that out because, it is, I have like had this very sort of, I feel like specific and like narrow way of playing in a lot of ways for a long time where things can just start to sound the same. So you're trying to write different music and you're like, okay, I'm always doing this like slap strummy thing. And it seems always like in a swing style at a similar tempo. And this is what like taking lessons opened up tenfold for me, was just thinking about like different ways to strum, different rhythmic patterns, like, yeah, I'm still trying to figure that out, and then I'm also trying to figure out how to go between those two things of doing more traditional like finger picking style, and then being able to strum and have my rhythm be more consistent and just predictable.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I love that music moves so much, but in playing with groups and playing with people, having that really locked in makes a pretty significant difference.
So, last question I want to ask you about,
Yes.
and then I'll probably have you play one more song
Okay.
to play us out. But
All right.
going full time to music,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like talk about this. Like, what was the straw that broke the camel's back kind of thing, and like where do you anticipate this going? Is this something you've had in the works? Is this something where you're like, you know what, I'm just betting on it. I'm just going to try it.
I mean,
Like, where did the plunge come from?
Opening the gallery and sort of like being in that space and wanting it to grow in ways that I just like I know it's not physically possible unless I'm there to put in sort of the like physical hours and build this thing that I am passionate about building. It is not going to work until I sort of like rip the cord, and I've had a safety net my whole life, and being a school psychologist has been amazing. I have learned, infinitely from that experience, and also, just have hilarious stories and kids and this amazing community of friends that I've met along the way. I just, I've like come to a point where I have these two things, music and art, that I'm like wildly passionate about, and I'm starting to figure out how to make them sustainable. And I have dreams for, spreading the love and joy, which sounds corny, but the gallery is a really special place, and, being able to sort of like have these little glimpses over the last few years of people being in the space and noticing just like the energy in there and what those little moments can do for all of us. You know, it's like these two things have been with me for, you know, music and art have been with me my whole life in some capacity. And I feel like it's time to do the big scary thing. And I'm fired up and I'm like ready to make it happen.
Yeah.
So
like
I'm
soon.
terrified. Like school, like
days.
like the kids are done school tomorrow. Right. And I have like paperwork to finish. And then by the time I leave for this trip on June 29th, like there will be the end of school, a mural painted on the side of this giant building, and I will drive west and then just have this month to be like, okay, here we go. You know,
that must be like pretty liberating though.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really excited because I feel like I feel like I have some tangible hopes and dreams that I'm excited to see come together. You know what I mean?
I think it's awesome.
So
I love when people just like bet on themselves and they go all in on it. And
I'm going all in. I mean, it doesn't happen without this like massive, like I was saying, you know, like these things don't happen without this. I have been so fortunate with an incredibly supportive like family and partner and friends that have bought my paintings and come to shows, and they have been like relentless in their love. And that is the reason I feel safe and well cared for, and that is why I can open this next door and see what shakes, you know.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna play us out here, so
Okay.
give us another minute or two of a jingle.
Okay.
Whatever one you are feeling.
All right.
And then again, folks, this is episode 236 with Giovanina Bucci. Oh, that's good. I did
was
2 for 2.
really great.
I kind
That
of tried to
was
say it
great.
fast because if I messed up, I said it fast and I felt like I was like, wait,
No, you're perfect.
He was really good. Okay,
All right. We were talking about 30 miles earlier, so I'll play that one.
take it away. Yeah.
All right, cool. There's a picture hanging on the wall in my bedroom. A tiny little cabin tucked way back in the woods. I don't know the story of who's lived there. Colored green like the trees it sits among. Oh, I don't want nothing fancy, I ain't fancy. A wood stove burning like the love I share with you. And I don't want nothing busy, it's been so busy. A quiet place 30 miles from town will do. And I wonder about the life we'd build if we built it there. Our backyard are trails to the mountains we call home. An acre full of rocks, throw a line and we can climb on. In a room full of books and paints full when it's raining. I don't want nothing fancy, I ain't fancy. A wood stove burning like the love I share with you. And I don't want nothing busy, it's been so busy. A quiet place 30 miles from town will do. Maybe nobody's ever gonna hear this song. All along I've been looking for a stage to sing it on. Turns out I don't want a stage at all. I'd be happy there with a cold beer singing to you. Oh, I don't want nothing fancy, I ain't fancy. Wood stove burning like the love I share with you. And I don't want nothing busy, it's been so busy. A quiet place 30 miles from town will do. Just a quiet place 30 miles from town with you. quiet place 30 miles from town. A quiet place 30 miles from town with you. Just a quiet place 30 miles from town with you.
Thank you for listening to the Galen Trombley Show. Be sure to subscribe, review, and share the episode. You can follow me on all social platforms at Galen Trombley. Thanks for listening.